if you're going through a big life transition, if you recently decided to change your life, really change your life, pursuing that creative project you always wanted, you always secretly wanted, relocating, entering marriage, breaking up, or any other kind of big life change, changing yourself and your life from the inside out, this video is for you. You might be noticing that everybody talks comfortably about the excitement, the joy, the new possibilities, the novelty of this new beginning. But nobody talks about this one thing that we're gonna be discussing today in today's video because it makes them feel uncomfortable. And what if I told you that might be the key to becoming the next version of yourself so much more quicker, to allowing yourself to pursue the new life, to not just be in this new life, but actively embodying the new self, the new identity in the new life. What if I told you that? And it's so simple. Because the thing is, nobody warns you about grief. And this is the really interesting thing. When there is death involved, when there is someone who passed away from your life, everybody expects grief. But not if you leave the old life behind, not if you leave behind the partying, the drinking, all of those unhealthy habits, not if you leave behind people that you no longer associate with, not if you relocate and move out of your country, not if you enter marriage, and surely not if you find and pursue actively the career of your dreams. And that I find so interesting. We as humans, we will do everything in our power to avoid the uncomfortable, to avoid the pain. This is not about blaming anybody. I myself, I have done that so many times in the past. I learned the hard way, let me tell you that. So that's why I love making those videos, because I get to share with you all of the things that I learned the past few years. And if you're really into human design, I am a projector, so I love sharing things with you, interacting with you and communicating with you. So I am really excited for today's topic. And this is again about navigating grief. And that grief, it's not just a side effect of this life transition, it's the life transition itself. And the truth is, if you don't learn how to move through this grief, it will quietly dismantle everything you are trying to build on the other side. Okay, let's dive into that. If you don't know me, hi, my name is Chrisana. I'm basically a psychological life coach. Welcome. If you've been here before, hi, welcome back. And yeah, let's get into the video. This is the thing about grief. It is only expected and accepted when you lose somebody physically. So last week, I lost my grandma, and it's been really interesting going through grief again by losing somebody physically, because I haven't experienced that in a few years now, even though I have really close experiences with death. I find really interesting how society reacts to that kind of events, and how society doesn't react or doesn't expect you to go through grief essentially when you experience something more of a positive, just like maybe relocating or entering marriage or pursuing that career you always wanted. Even though those experiences on their own, they are neutral, nothing is bad or good. I'm just trying to paint a picture here. So since last week, I've been going through a lot of grief. There is a lot of ups and downs with grief, as you may know, and it hasn't been easy for me. And at the same time, because I'm someone who actively wants to learn from life, wants to unlearn and relearn from life, I've been into self-development since I was a teenager, since I actually lost my other grandma, and I've been into inner work I think around 7 years now. And for me, it's all about learning and unlearning our ways of living life, and constantly being on this pursuit of achieving our highest potential. And so because of that, I have experienced a lot of grief in my life. Like even 2 months ago, I don't recognize myself. I don't associate myself with the Chrisana of what was 2 months ago, January 2026. I just done. I am an entirely new person. I'm not her anymore. And when you constantly pursue your highest potential, you wanna get in touch back to the true you, and you constantly keep working on that, there's something really interesting happening. You constantly experience grief. And when I say grief, I mean you constantly grieve the past version of yourself, the past ways of living and experiencing life, because in some kind of capacity, you were benefiting out of that. I was benefiting out of that. And even though it wasn't giving me what I truly wanted for myself, it was giving me some things. Even if it wasn't something that might have been the ultimate desire, it was giving me a lot. So for example, before last year, I wasn't praying and I had more anxiety. I was more prone to not being in my center. And 1.5 years now, I find myself so much more centered within myself because I know I'm not alone. I have God on my side. We are all children of God. And when you let go of the past habit, just like I did, I wasn't praying, for example, I grieved this version of myself because she got me where I am. She got me to praying. She got me to being closer to God. Even though she didn't have the capacity to do that, I celebrate her. I have empathy for her because she gave me the life that I have right now. And so grief is not something that only happens when we lose someone physically, even though that seems to be the most valid experience socially and in communities. This is not the only way you experience grief. Another thing that comes to my mind is when mothers birth their children and then they might experience depression. This is not by accident. Of course, I want to acknowledge here the hormonal changes happening in the female body. And at the same time, this mother learned how to hold her child inside her womb for 9 months. That is a big process. When she births the child and brings that into the physical reality, she loses something at the same time. She loses the version of herself who was pregnant. She loses the child being inside of her. Now, this child becomes its own self, slowly and steadily, not being one with the mother. And that also brings grief. So every time we're going through a big life transition, there is grief associated with that. That's why inside Metamorphosis, I walk you through the psychological codes of every single life transition, because there are certain psychological codes behind every single life transition. And when you know what to expect and how to walk through it, how to process it, you are not being taken by surprise. You are not allowing yourself to self-sabotage your new identity, your new life. You're not allowing yourself to be in self-doubt. You're not allowing yourself to be overwhelmed with fear. You know how to walk through that. And those things just dissolve because you are allowing yourself, for example, with the grief, to move through grief, to know how to process grief and not suppress it. Because when we suppress grief, it turns into self-sabotage. It's like every single time we're going through a big life transition, the sacred in between, as I call it, we are leaving something behind. We are closing a door and we are opening another door. And in order to open the other door and actually enter into this new house, into this new reality, you need to lock the other door. You need to actively close and then lock that door and even throw away the key. And that's why there is so much grief, because you have to let go of something behind. Let go of the past version of yourself, the one that might have survived by overthinking, by people pleasing, by indecision, by any kind of those survival strategies. Because maybe making a choice meant risking disappointment, and you didn't allow yourself to do that. You didn't want to feel disappointed in anything, in other people, in yourself, in any kind of situation. And those are not personality flaws. This is just survival strategies. We all have them. We all carry them. It's just about unlearning them. It's not about suppressing or repressing or blaming ourselves. No, it's not about blaming ourselves. It's about allowing yourself yourself to witness it and be like, oh, okay, I'm doing that thing that doesn't bring anything in my life besides chaos, besides repeating old patterns that bring nothing good into my life. They just bring resentment, fear, anxiety. And when you move out of this space, you're not moving out of fear, you're moving out of love for yourself. You witness the pattern, the survival pattern, and then you allow yourself to be like, oh, okay, that's interesting, without criticizing yourself. And being able to move from that space is so freeing, because it's like saying to yourself, okay, I am not gonna shame myself right now. It is okay that I have this response. I'm just a human being. This is what I learned to do, and now it's time to unlearn it. It's time to move through it. And even this process feels like a small death, because you are releasing something from your past self. And now, because you release that, you are allowing yourself to go through this rebirth, just like the butterfly. You are emerging out of the cocoon, and you are allowing yourself to fly. It's so freeing to go through that. Also, when you do that inner work, there's also this grief of not belonging anywhere. In the places, in the circles, in the city, in the versions of your home you once knew. The furniture, the places, the park seem the same, but something inside of you have shifted and you don't see them as you used to see them. Everything might seem familiar, but at the same time, you are not the same person anymore. You are not the same person who lived in that city. And that kind of gap is its own kind of loss. This is exactly the grief of becoming, of re-becoming, and getting back to your true self, of becoming the person you always wanted to be. And this comes with grief. And it's real. You're not just imagining things. But if you don't allow yourself to move through this grief, when you push it down, stay busy, reframe it in some kind of way, suppress it, perform that you are fine, until you almost believe that grief doesn't just disappear. It goes underground. Think of it like water that has nowhere to drain. It's like stagnant water. We all know that stagnant waters are really dirty. They gather a lot of bacteria, and this can be also dangerous. So we learn to stay away from stagnant water. It's exactly like that, because the more this water stays stagnant and it doesn't have anywhere to flow, it's going to start becoming toxic. And that's exactly what we do to ourselves. We start becoming sick when we suppress the grief. We become unhealthy. We lose our routines. We don't eat healthy. We don't sleep enough hours, because there's something underlying. And we know that. Subconsciously, we know that. Even though consciously we do everything in our power to avoid it, we know there's something underneath that needs to be addressed. The truth is, unprocessed grief leaks energy. This can show up as psychosomatic issues, migraines, a constant pressure in your chest, anything like that. You might also not be able to go to sleep even though you are really exhausted. The anxiety that might show up for no logical reason. All of those things are not random. Your system is intelligent. Our systems are intelligent. They know when something needs to be addressed, and it's gonna send you signs to address them. Those are the signs. It might also show up as self-sabotage. The project you almost finished, but something happened. Maybe you got sick, maybe you got to a fight with your partner. It might also show up as self-doubt, which is another form of self-sabotage if you ask me. And it doesn't allow you to commit to the new creative project. It doesn't allow you to be in the life you're stepping into. It keeps dragging you back to the old life. And that is not random. This is the sign your system is sending you, so you can actually process the grief during this big life transition. Because when you do, magic happens. And the truth is, behind the psychosomatic issues, the self-sabotage, the self-doubt, is the grief demanding to be felt, demanding to be processed, just asking for attention, demanding to be validated by you. The only question is whether you're gonna meet it on your own terms, or whether it pulls the floor out from under you when you least expect it. So you decide how it's gonna go down, because it's going down. And you get to choose that. You get to choose how it's going to go down. So if you're dragging unprocessed grief into your new chapter, into your new life, it's like you're building the new house under cracked foundation and you keep wondering why the walls keep shifting. On the other side, this is not about dwelling on sadness. This is not about sitting on your couch all day long and performing being sad. Yes, it's really important to move through this grief. And at the same time, it's important to not abandon or neglect your needs. Yeah, if you need some days to just be in your bed, that's perfect. Everybody experiences grief in their own terms. It is not a question of how you're going to experience it. It is a question of allowing it to move through you. It's a question of embodying grief and not suppressing it. It's about actually letting it be in your body, in your chest, in your head, in your ankle, anywhere you might be feeling it. Instead of trying to manage it, from this intellectual state. This is not about intellectualizing grief. No, you don't have to force it. It's about grief taking the passenger seat in your life, not the driver's seat. It's about you taking the driver's seat and allowing it to be there in the passenger seat. Because when you do that, when you allow grief to move through you, it's like there is an opening of space inside of you. It's like this release of energy. And when you release or digest this kind of energy, you are actually creating more space in your life for the new, for the excitement, for the joy, for the inner peace, for the calm, for the courage, for anything that you might have imagined for your new life. Because you're no longer allowing it to drown you. And that's exactly how it shows up in your nervous system. It's this sense of expansion after digesting the sorrow, the sadness, and the grief. Space for the new project, the meaningful relationship, the new city that can finally feel like home. And most importantly, the version of yourself that doesn't carry weight anymore. This is exactly what we do inside Metamorphosis. This is why I walk you through inside Metamorphosis the psychological codes of every single life transition, so you know what to expect, how to process it, how to move through this big life transition, and then use it for any other kind of life transition that you might ever go through. Because this is how you move through a life transition. You get clarity about your next steps, because big life transitions are so confusing and disorienting. You cultivate the ability to act from courage instead of chaos and fear. You acquire emotional stability instead of constant internal chaos and overwhelm. You release the fear and you get to embody the new version of yourself, the new identity, actually allowing yourself to feel joy, inner peace, calm in your new chapter of your life. You don't allow self-sabotage, fear, self-doubt to control your life anymore. You take the driver's seat of your life. So if you're going through a big life transition and that speaks to you, I will leave the link down below. I would love to welcome you in. I also want to remind you that grief is not a sign that you made the wrong choice. Grief actually is a sign that you are taking yourself into the right direction. It means you have love for the past version of yourself. You have empathy. You experienced something that was giving you life, that was giving you energy, that was giving you aliveness in any sort of capacity. And now you get to change that. You get to move to the next version of your life, to the next version of yourself. It's a sign that you are releasing what actually mattered to you. So allow yourself to experience the full spectrum of grief, of sadness, of sorrow. The more you allow yourself to feel pain, discomfort, the more deeply you're going to experience excitement, joy, happiness, inner peace. This is the only way. The only way is to move through it. Even if it doesn't make any sense, even if it's messy, even when you seem to go backwards, trust your journey. Trust your unique path. Trust that this is how it's meant to unfold for you, because something genuinely beautiful is waiting for you on the other side. And by clearing this grief, you are allowing more space again for excitement and for joy. So move through it and let it change you. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. I am rooting for you. Let me know in the comments, what is this life transition, the sacred in between, as we like to call it here, is showing you right now? What is one insight? I respond to all of the comments. I love learning more about you, so please let me know. And yeah, I will see you next week. Bye.